Indie Mogul.
Hey Indie Mogulers, Russell here. Last week on Friday 101, we went over the basics of screenplay formatting, which you can check out by clicking the link on screen right now or on the link in this video's description. This week, using the questions that you guys submitted, we're going to be going over a few more advanced formatting tips right after the newly shortened intro. There were 5 major topics brought up in the emails that I received, and one that I have to get out of the way first has to do with those of you who asked about writing things like camera angles and transitions into your scripts. Also on-screen text like opening credits or scene descriptions saying when and where the video takes place. One of the things that I should have mentioned last week was that we're dealing with what are called spec scripts in these episodes. When you're writing a story yourself, unsolicited, and just hoping to either eventually produce it or sell it, that's a spec script. When these scripts move into production, you would then create a shooting script, and that is the only time that you should add anything that implies what images are going on screen and how they're going to come together. Shooting scripts are a completely different beast, and something that we'll probably get into later this year when I get my first feature off the ground. I don't want to leave you guys who are wondering about that completely empty-handed till then, so I've included a few links in the description that will help answer a few of those questions. But for now, we'll be sticking with spec scripts. Now to our next most asked about topic, cutting between scenes that are happening at the same time, also known as intercutting. One of my favorite examples of intercutting is the scene in Jurassic Park where Tim is climbing the electric fence while it's turned off. Meanwhile, Ellie is turning the power back on to all the systems, including the fence, and Hammond is giving her instructions elsewhere. For something like this, or even something as simple as a phone conversation, use your slug lines when first showing each location. Then after each location is established, you can say intercut between location A, location B, and in the case of that Jurassic Park scene, location C. From there, you don't have to use the same slug lines over and over again, which is especially helpful during a phone call scene, as you don't want to do that again every other line. Another one of the big questions was about montages, which is actually a pretty simple one. Now, you don't want to go really crazy with montages, as this is another time where the director usually chooses when they're appropriate to use. And it counts as a visual element that you don't want to write in. Lots of old school screenwriting teachers actually think that you shouldn't use them at all in a spec script, but I wouldn't be so harsh. Just make sure that you only use them when it's absolutely necessary and you can't think of any other way of actually writing it out. Here's the montage format. If the previous slug line applies to the location used in the entire montage, then no new slug line is needed. Just write montage and then underneath a description of each thing that is happening to cut between. That's not every cut as it's going to be in editing, just every individual scene that will be broken up eventually. If various locations are used, still keep that montage header, but add your locations to the front of the scene breakdowns, whether simply like so or in full slugline format. Either will do. Flashbacks were also asked about a lot. These are pretty easy too. There's a few methods, but I think that the simplest is best. Write your slugline as usual and just add another detail after everything else that reads flashback. And when the flashback is finished, in the next slug line, add back to present. Again, with spec scripts, the best thing that you can do is keep it simple and an easy read. Now, the most asked formatting questions that I received were all in regards to action scenes. And the truth is, this one can be really simple or it can be insanely detailed. For example, there are scenes in The Matrix where the fight scenes are not literally, but essentially written as they fight and it looks awesome. If your action scenes are the sort that you feel can be worked out or choreographed on set, or if you know that you want an action scene but you don't want to bog yourself down by writing every minor thing, this is totally acceptable. But if you want to do your action scenes very specifically, I recommend reading through Quentin Tarantino's script for Kill Bill, especially the showdown at the House of Blue Leaves scene where the bride fights the Crazy 88. You can find it on imsdb.com, and when it comes to screenwriting, Tarantino is a guy whose scripts you really want to read if you want a masterclass in how it's done. Now, every single step of that fight is written out, and it goes on for quite some time, taking up pages and pages of screenplay. It's really up to you how you want to do that, but either method is acceptable. A few other quick tips to a few questions in regards to capitalizing character names. It is only needed the first time a character is introduced in the action. Moving from one room to another in the same building, use subheadings. These don't use INT or EXT, and they don't denote time because it's understood that it's continuous. So if you start out with interior house day and things move from room to room, just use subheadings like hallway, bedroom, kitchen, etc. And of course, because I said I would mention it last week, if two people talk at the same time, you just put the line side by side. It's that simple. How to do this? In cell text, just highlight the 2 lines of dialogue you want to happen at once, and you'll notice they get marked off when you click dual dialogue. Now when you either go to print out a hard copy or export a PDF file to send to people, it will format it properly. That's all for me for this week. Thanks to everyone who sent in their format questions, and if I didn't get to your questions for any reason, I will be sure to respond to you via email. If you've got any tips of your own, leave them in the comments below and help each other out. We'll see you all back here next week for another great lineup of Indie Mogul programming, and if you haven't heard it yet, my interview for the Ron Petit Show went up at ronperti.com this past Tuesday. The link is in the description below. And I hope I came off well this week because I am ridiculously sick. Can you tell?